So the theme of the talk for this evening is called "How Will You Approach Life? Mindfulness in Uncertain Times." So this time in our history has been given lots of names, and they do name periods of history in different ways, you know, the Enlightenment and the Dark Ages and so on. So there's lots of names happening and by the philosophers and commentators and so on. So it's been called a fast forward in human evolution, a time of emergence, of great change, of creativity, a gateway to human growth, a portal, a time for reimagining our concepts of meaning, a time to explore our emerging awareness, a time to rebalance, to explore what is really important, a cusp in human evolution. They do like the word cusp. So all of these are narratives of prediction. Narratives of prediction, and I'm going to be talking a little more about that. But prior to the long drought that experienced by a lot of people in Australia, then the pandemic, the ordinariness of our daily round has allowed for some illusion that there will be certainty within the ordinary realms of the unexpected. This ordinariness has been totally overturned, throwing us headlong into the realization of uncertainty, feelings of bewilderment, fear, grief, and many other feelings. When there is such a magnified level of uncertainty, humans tend to cling to certainty. And clinging on to certainty means that we have to create a prediction story. And I have just listed some of the very general prediction stories that are flying around at the moment. Our very specific own individual prediction stories may be of our hopes, our visions, our plans, our dreams, our aspirations for ourselves and our young people. They are very specific to us. But what is happening is that we can't predict in the same way that we used to be able to predict. And when there's nothing to depend on except change, how do we live without being driven by fear of loss of what we have now until now referred to as normal? And you know, you might say, what is normal? But that's what's happening. We are referring to what in the past as normal. So something that we can do that is in our control in this time of great uncertainty in relation to personal dreams and aspirations may lie in developing a vision of how you will be approaching life as it is unfolding now, rather than imagining specific attributes of a lifestyle, a work style, a specific view of the future or activity of your own, creating narratives of prediction. So we're focusing on how we will live. And if you choose to develop a vision of how you will be approaching life as it is offering to us now, you will be creating an awareness of what will be wise action for yourself now. And the teachings of the Buddha Dharma have offered this for centuries. The teachings are like a compass. They provide an orientation, but not a map. And so the work of living practice is creating the map for yourself. And how to follow the teachings will be different for each one of us and for every era. So making the teachings your own through your unique insight is what moves them from book-learned theory to a lived practice that is a gift to you and a gift to all beings. That is why the Buddha said to his dearest friend Ananda, when Ananda asked him what was the most important thing, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the Buddha said that Sangha, the community of meditators, is all of the practice, because that is where our commitment to the Dharma is expressed in behavior that encompasses wise speech, wise action, and wise livelihood. So the Buddha asks us to explore suffering and the causes of suffering in relation to the characteristics of existence. And those characteristics, 3 characteristics, are suffering, impermanence, and not self. And he doesn't present the teachings as something to believe in, but as something to explore for yourself. So there's enormous respect for the human capacity for wisdom. And he said, I wouldn't be saying this if it wasn't possible. Such a beautiful, tender thing to say to people. I wouldn't be telling you this if it was not possible. So continuous change is the second characteristic of existence. And change seems to be accelerating in a very noticeable way. Well, it's always happening, but it's very much accelerated, it seems, at this time. And we know by now that suffering arises from clinging on to things that are subject to change. So in the face of continuous change, the Buddha emphasized the importance of developing steadiness of mind and compassion for others and self-compassion. And this is more than ever needed as an antidote to the challenges that we all are facing at the moment. So a very powerful self-inquiry question as to how you will approach life as it is now is to ask yourself, what is the most precious thing in my life? And this is a huge question. It's a very, very big question. What is the most precious thing in my life? And as you listen, as I'm saying this, there's possibly a number of things running through your mind. So if there is, can you reflect for a moment on whether these things are subject to change? Do you want to make things that are subject to change the most precious things in your life? What is the danger in that? And if we've been studying the Dharma, we know, or if we've just been studying life itself, we know the answer to that question. Hanging on to things that end, the answer is unease, stress, and suffering. So the most precious thing in all our lives is this very moment. This very moment. What is happening right now? Because in this very moment, if we don't think about it, things are okay in this very, very moment. The practice of mindfulness, of meeting the moment with a mind free of conceptuality. This very moment is a place of deep rest, of deep connection, both inner and outer, and a place of intimacy and joy. Well, it's not really a place, it's a way of being. Meeting the moment with a mind free of conceptuality is a way of being. So an unfragmented attention that does not allow the mind to be populated with what singer-songwriter Maggie Wheeler calls future tripping, or it could be past tripping. So it's a very contemporary way of talking about it, future tripping or past tripping. And Maggie Wheeler has written a song called Focus on the Now. And I learnt this song in our veggie garden singing group. I live with a lot of people on some land in northern New South Wales. We have a huge veggie garden and we all work in it at the same time. We look like a bit of a Peter Bruegel painting, all these people busily working in the garden. So we started singing this song because we didn't go out anywhere. We started singing this song during the first lockdown. And this is what Maggie says. It's very pop song type words. She says, come on, let's focus on the now, focus on the now. The moment is the medicine. Let's focus on the now. When you don't know when you don't know how, just stop and look around and focus on the now. So the Dharma has certainly entered a broader audience with songs such as this. And Julie, who's on the farm, who teaches us these songs in our community garden, she's not a Dharma practitioner. However, the Dharma has somehow seeped into the mainstream. And she realizes the preciousness of focusing on the now after a series of events that brought her to a place of deep self-reflection. So she was driving her car and her children up one of the forest roads at the back of this farm, and the car caught fire. And she got all the kids and the musical instruments out of the car, and she got far away enough from the car that they weren't hurt, and the car exploded into flames. And the other thing that happened was during the bushfires last year, they came within 4.5 kilometers of this farm, and the valley had to be evacuated, and this farm had to be evacuated. And then another big change is happening in her life. So she found this song a good medicine. And that's what it was called at the time, that the Four Noble Truths were the diagnosis. There is suffering if we cling on to things, and the medicine is to let go of clinging, cessation of clinging, and to practice the wisdom of the Noble Eightfold Path. That's the Four Noble Truths in a nutshell. So it was regarded as a diagnosis and a medicine for the unease and stress and suffering that we bring upon, we add to what's already there. And Julie said she comes back again and again to the words of this song when her mind wants to think ahead or plan or dream. And so it's such a joy to sing this song in the garden. There's a kookaburra who watches us, but the other eye is on the worms that when the soil gets turned over. And there's a creek nearby that's bubbling and singing its own song. So no one can tell us how to think or interpret what is happening. But if we keep leaning into the moment, keep ourselves steady in the moment, then the wisdom on how to approach your life will emerge from this deeper intimacy with yourself. And I just went over to the retreat that's happening on the coast at the moment that I was going to be teaching at before. I thought it wasn't a good idea to be there. I went over and did an inquiry with them today, and there were lots and lots of questions about how they should live their lives. And for each person that came up for inquiry, the orientation looking in the direction that's going to help, to looking towards what's happening, what your own inner process is what's going to inform you about how to live your life. And that's the mindfulness of the body. So it is becoming more and more obvious that trying to get answers outside of ourselves is not going to bring wisdom, because these answers are simply not there. And the Buddha went against the stream, he went against the mainstream, and he told us to look in the direction that helps. And the direction is the direction of looking towards the mindfulness of the body. And although it's a simple instruction, we all find it, every practitioner finds it incredibly difficult to do. So awakening, waking up, is a shift from the view that we are an isolated ego self to realizing the interpenetration of all things, the non-separability of the totality. And present moment awareness through practice of mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mind states, is the practice that supports this realization, this profound realization. So if we notice that we're fabricating a narrative about the past or the future, or if we notice that there's a feeling of aversion or desire, or if we notice that there's a mind state of distraction, it is simply that. Awareness is revealing your moment by moment experience. And the practice is to recognize what is arising without making it wrong or bad or something to get rid of or to judge and reject it. And if judgment and rejection arise, then this is also what is happening now. So we bring our attention to that. It is being revealed by awareness. Notice it and make your intention to refrain from fabricating a narrative about how you should be, how things should be, because if you do that, you will simply fracture your presence of mind. And it's common parlance to talk about being in the present or in the now. So the song says being in the now. That's just how we speak. But it is not a location, a space or place. It is the peace of your own mind that has opened to beyond where and when and how. So another verse of the song is, when I hear the news, when I think ahead, when I try to make a plan, it fills my heart with dread. That's when I focus on the now, focus on the now. The moment is the medicine. Let's focus on the now. And it is delightful to sing these words. However, the practice, although simple, is not easy as we come up against our conditioned habits of mind that desire a quick fix, a magic pill, an easy way out, the consumer conditioned mind of instant gratification or immediate release from the unpleasant. That's how we're all conditioned. So we need to observe that impatience that we have with ourselves. So can you bring compassion to all your vulnerabilities in the face of change and uncertainty? Can you let go of judging yourself for any of these listed habits or others that you may have? Can you immerse yourself, your being, in the immediacy and the intimacy of present moment awareness as life arrives at your sense doors? Can you get curious through the felt sense about the question of where does your eye end and the flower begin? Where does your skin end and the caress of a breeze begin? Where does your eardrum end and the sound of the birdsong begin? Can you explore the simple knowing of experience? And those questions I've just said, can you notice where your eye ends and the flower begins, is a very wonderful practice that you can do at any time in the day, just to feel the connection of present moment, the intimacy of present moment awareness, the interpenetration of all things. But you could well be thinking now, all those examples I've just given are very pleasant. So what about the unpleasant? The jumping ant bite. Well, I don't know if you have jumping ants in Victoria, but they're incredibly painful bite. The painful body sensations associated with aging or injury from sport or whatever, and fear about the future. So when something is painful, mental proliferation, mental fabrication tends to increase, and we create a catastrophizing narrative. Is that right? Yeah, we created a catastrophizing narrative. And this is called in the Dharma, it's called the second arrow. So yes, aspects of aging are difficult and painful, but when you create a catastrophizing narrative, you make it worse. That's called the second arrow. The first arrow is the painful experience. The second arrow leads to mental and physical contraction and magnifies that pain of discomfort. So the writer and broadcaster Julia Baird wrote a beautiful memoir called Phosphorescence. And she recalls facing cancer and 3 long surgeries that required very pain-ridden recoveries. And she was also at the time a single mother with 2 small children. So when asked how she got through, she says she didn't engage in catastrophizing narratives. And she practiced gratitude for the supportive friends around her and loving kindness towards herself. So using the teachings of the Buddha Dharma as a compass, you can create a map for yourself that supports you to open to the peace and steadiness that present moment awareness brings. That is within your power, and they have great support through Melbourne Insight Group, making teachings so accessible and actually more accessible during this difficult time of lockdown. So please use that support, use the community, use the Sangha, even though we're using it through the Zoom and so on. Attend the retreats, find that support to create your own maps of yourself, for yourself, of how you are to live in these uncertain times. So may you find equanimity and peace of mind. May you live with ease and well-being, and may you have happiness and of heart and mind. Let's just have a moment of silence.
Thank you.